Okay, so section C of the test paper, you can see we've got question 7. It says Jim is a farmer. He plans to keep sheep on his land. The land is rectangular with length 250 meters and width 200 meters. He has this rule to find the area of the land. Again, it's very similar to one we had earlier. It is a function machine. That's what we call these questions. Okay. And just like before, whatever you put in here, you follow the operations until you get an answer. Okay. And in this case, it says what you need to put in at the beginning is the length in meters, which we know is 250 meters because it says up here, length 250 meters. Then the next part, it says multiply by the width, and we know the width is 200 meters. So if you multiply both of those together, you get 50,000. Make sure you use a calculator, and the answer, it says, is in meters squared. Okay, so we've found the area of his field is 50 meters squared. Right, the next part of the question says Jim knows that each sheep needs an area of 800 meters squared. So what we need to do is we need to take the total area of the field, divide it by 800 because that's how many meters squared one sheep would need. And that will tell us how many sheep can fit into that area of the field. And the answer is 62.5 sheep. But obviously you can't have half a sheep. And in this question, if you round up to 63, you can't fit 63 in. So in questions like this, you need to round down. So the answer is 62 sheep. Remember, we want our answer in words. So Jim thinks he can keep 70 sheep on his land in his field, but he can't. He can only keep 62. So Jim is not correct. Okay. Question 8. Lambs are usually born in the first 4 weeks of April, and then you have a table, and it's got the weeks listed in the first columns. So the first row in the columns, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, and the number of lambs born in each week. So 23, 45, 33, and 9. Okay, Jim thinks the mean. So as soon as you hear the word the mean, you should be thinking of this topic, in which this is averages. Okay, and for averages, all you need to know at level 1 is how to calculate the mean and how to calculate range. And this question is obviously a mean one. People like to remember this. The meanie is the hard one. It's the hard average, which you add them all together and you divide it by how many you added together, how many values. So there was 4 of them, so divided by 4. If you add those all up together, you get 110 divided by 4, which is nice and easy. That comes out 27.5 using your calculator. Always use your calculator, okay? Hopefully you noticed it says show a check. This is worth marks. These questions are always worth marks. So let's do one calculation backwards. So we'll start with our answer, 27.5. And instead of doing what we did here, which was divide by 4, the opposite, the inverse calculation is times by 4. Use your calculator and you should get 110. So that's a check. The next part of that question says visitors come to the farm to see the lambs. Jim wants to display the information in a table on a bar chart for visitors. Okay, it's the same table, but this time you need to draw a chart or a graph. Now, there's 2 types of charts and graphs you need to think about at level 1. The first one is called a line graph. It looks like this. The second one is called a bar chart. It looks like this. What's the difference? The easiest way to explain it is you use line graphs for things you measure with an instrument, like temperature. Okay, a bar chart, which is this one, is for things you can count. So you can count them using your fingers, or you can count them on a calculator. They're whole numbers, usually whole numbers. Okay, in this case, we can count lambs born using our fingers. Okay, so we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lambs, which means we're going to use a bar chart. Okay, the next thing you need to think about with a bar chart is, let me just give you a quick example. This is not a bar chart. There's no gaps between those bars. It's therefore a histogram. Do not draw one of these. Okay, now we need to think about the two axes on a bar chart, the vertical and the horizontal. You need to think about the highest value given in that table. The highest value is 45. So you've got to show on a bar chart something going up to 45. And I suggest at level 1 you always start from 0. Okay? If you look at the graph paper you've got to draw your graph, if you count up the side, you'll realise that there are from the bottom to the top 12 squares. Now you can try a couple of different scales. You could go up 0, 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50, which is fine because that is enough to put 45 on, which is your biggest value, but it doesn't really use enough of the graph. So what you should do is try and use a bigger scale, which means each deviation, each separation is actually a smaller value. So we're going to go up in fives: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 and 45. Okay, so that is what we call the frequency. And along the bottom, we're going to show the different weeks. Okay, and the first one, week 1, we go up to 23. So I'm going to draw a column, or bar, which goes up to 23 here. Goes across. This is not very neat. It'll be much neater in your test, on your test paper when you do it. The second one goes up to 45. Remember, always leave a gap. Otherwise, it's not a bar chart, it's a histogram. Number 3 is 33. So it goes up somewhere here. And number 4 is 9. So it goes up somewhere here. You need to label those 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what are they? They're weeks. And here you have number of lambs. Okay, and you always have to put a title, otherwise you won't get the full marks. So number of lambs born each week. And now the very last question, question 9. And this is a fairly tricky question for a lot of learners. This is what we call special offers type of question. Okay, it's called a special offer question. Yeah. So question 9 is a special offer type question. Sometimes involves buy 1, get 1 free, or buy 2, get the third free. And in this case, you've got, for every 5 you buy at Howe's Farm, you get an extra one free. So this can be quite confusing for learners. Okay, you need to buy 30 in total, and we need to compare both of the options, the two companies. So we have Hay Farm, and we also have Farming Supplies. So for Hay Farm, what I was going to say is every time we buy 5, we get plus 1. Okay, and that comes to 6 in total. But we've only actually paid for 5 of them when we get 6. So what we need to do is we need to do 5 times by the cost of each of them, which is £6.30. And that gives me £31.50. And that is the cost for 6. So £31.50 for 6. You need to work out how many for 30. So how many times bigger is 30 than 6? The answer is 5. Times this one by 5 also. £31.50 times by 5 gives me £157.50. Okay, so that is the Hay Farm option, £157.50. Now for Farming Supplies, it's not a buy 1 get 1 free or anything like that. It's a discount. So sale, it says for Farming Supplies, pay 70% of the normal price. So what we need to look at is we're going to pay £88 for 15. So that is for 15. How much would that be then? So we're going to ask ourselves is if it's £88 for 15, we need to work out what that is with a 70% of the normal sale price. So we're going to try and find 70% of £88. Okay. The way I teach it is 70% is the same as 70 over 100. Of in maths always means multiplication. This line here means division. So you do 70 divided by 100 on your calculator, times it by 88, and you get £61.60. Now this is only for 15. So we need to times this by what? What do we need to times it by to get 30? We need to times it by 2. If you times it by 2, you get £123.20. So the easy comparison now is what is cheaper, £123.20 from farming supplies or £157.50 from Hayes Farm? Well, it's not a very difficult choice. So it is farming supplies is cheaper. Again, remember you have to answer these in words.